So we are calling the December 5th Select Board meeting to order. The first item is to set and adjust the agenda.
Could we do an executive session to talk about the town report dedication, just to make it a surprise?
Yeah. Do we have a number for that, Casey, or we can look it up for the?
It's 1 VSA 313.
VSA 313. Any other additions or subtractions? Eric, can you hear okay?
I can.
Okay. Hearing none, do we have a motion for that addition?
I'm sorry.
I'm not looking at you.
Yeah.
Tim could make it to.
I move to, we, adjusted agenda be approved.
Seconded.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Abstentions? All right, motion passes. We're adding the executive session. And the next item is communication from the audience. We do have Wiz here via Zoom, but is there any communication for an item that's not being discussed on the agenda?
No, just curious.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, it's nice to see you. Okay, so the next item is Select Board to approve the minutes from the regular Select Board meeting of November 21st.
So moved?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Abstention?
Aye.
You got aye, okay.
Aye.
Aye.
All
Aye,
right,
Captain.
those are approved, thank you. The next item is the town manager's report.
I don't know exactly where he is. He might be there was a significant fire in East Hardwick today. 7 families are displaced, and he might be busy dealing with that right now, as well as Mike, so I think that's
Yeah,
why
they are.
they're absent.
Yeah.
So I imagine that David might join a little bit later, but for right now,
The good news is we know where they are,
Yeah,
the people.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
so we can move on by those.
yeah.
All right.
Significantly gonna move the meeting up.
Yeah. So we will, and I did hear from Opie right before the meeting, because I was asking him about that. It sounds like he wants to give a report on that fire, so maybe he'll be here later or something like that. Great. So the first item is Select Board to discuss how to spend the Budget Act adjustment funds.
So I put in your packet, this was something, it's basically a grant, but there was no grant agreement, no anything. It's basically just accept these funds. And the idea is that they're really for flood recovery. The only 2 restrictions, as you saw on here, is that they can't be spent on projects which are eligible for FEMA public assistance, and you have to maintain the records accordingly. So those are the only 2 conditions. We've already received the money. It's sitting in unspent right now, and so we just need to decide how to spend that. So we don't have to make a decision tonight, you don't have to make a decision tonight, but generate a little bit of discussion, any ideas on how you think that might best serve the community.
I have one idea. We've been talking about adding a public works director who would also manage a bunch of projects that are flood related. It seems like we could maybe use these funds to offset the cost of that position for the first year.
I like that idea. Conversely, we also could use it for the water meters.
We actually can't.
Okay, then we're
We can't.
I defer to Eric.
Yes. We can't because those are enterprise funds. This has to be used for general funds that have like the actual flood. So the enterprise funds, water and sewer can't actually use these funds.
But we don't have to decide tonight, you said,
No,
right?
we don't, just a few ideas. We have had these funds since August, I think, so, it's been on my mind to bring it up. And I thought maybe during budget season might be a good time, so.
Would we be
Here
able
it
to
is.
use it as the first year salary for?
I mean, I think it meets the criteria, like that's not a, I mean, it says projects, which are eligible to be spent on projects. I mean, I don't know if that's a project, but it's fund related.
We're all projects, right?
I mean, I guess if you're hiring somebody to manage the flood related projects, it's multiple projects that are gonna benefit from it. So I would think that we could substantiate that, just my opinion, but.
What are some of the ideas that the staff have had about it? Or has there been a discussion about some of the options?
I mean, we didn't really talk about it too much. One thing I said was the pedestrian bridge is one thing. That
Yep.
obviously we have a funding gap there, so that was just one thing. And that obviously was affected by the flood, but the only reimbursement we have is for the wall portion, not the actual bridge. And the bridge was delayed because of the flood. So that was one idea. Kristen, you have something?
Nope. I'll get it.
I love it.
There's no trouble.
So one other question I have about it, and forgive me if I missed it, is there a timeline for spending the funds? I didn't see it in the letter. but
I did
wasn't-
not see it. For some reason, I was thinking like the end of 2026, maybe,
Okay.
something like that.
So we don't have to
Have to
spend it
look.
by this fiscal year, even though we got it?
No,
Okay.
no. And I can find that out, but it didn't actually say, there's no formal grant agreement, so, yeah, as long as we can show we spent it at some point, but anyway, so that's, something to think about. So we got a couple ideas, pedestrian bridge and funding the director of public works to do flood recovery projects.
I can do that.
Okay, go Kristen.
The Granite Street Historic District has at least 15 houses that could use floodproofing. That would not cover that, but it could be used for the engineering that would allow for that. That's protecting 15 houses of people who live in the town, and they're not available for public assistance. And the funds that we were hoping to go for are probably not going to be released ever.
So it would be for engineering costs for that work.
Yep.
And so the way that would potentially work is we would hire an engineer with those funds, and then it would be up to those private landowners to then use those designs or whatever.
You could either, if you did it that way, you could, we could hopefully find funding once you have all the engineering, et cetera. The hard part is finding the engineering for people to know what to do with their structure. So you'd hire a company that would come in and make recommendations for each location down in that district, so that they can stay in their houses and not have to move. And then you go for funds to implement or allow them to use those funds the plans to go on their own if they wanted to, would not wait.
So this is not about decide tonight, right?
Yeah.
Great.
We don't
But I
decide
didn't say
tonight.
that.
Okay, so,
So maybe as a way to move forward, we can compile the ideas, Casey, and then bring it up and,
sure.
Yeah, so I would say my input is going to be that I would like to see it achieve more than just 16 people, 16 taxpayers. You know what I'm saying? Like, something that every taxpayer will benefit from. I hate to try not to be a jerk, but I understand these people are in a rough spot, but that's just my input.
yeah, so maybe if we don't have to decide tonight, maybe we can just put everything down,
Yeah, I've got the list of potential ideas.
and then we can think about it more and add to it, and then come back to it in
It's fine.
a
Yeah.
couple, I mean, if we don't have to spend the funds till 2026, there's not, I mean, we should still
Yeah.
come up with something, but,
It would be nice to commit it somewhere, you know, maybe even before the end of the fiscal
It'd be great to
year,
use
but-
it, but I think we
Yeah.
need to use it to
I mean,
benefit
we're
everyone.
sitting on it, we have it in our possession, we're earning interest on it, so, yeah.
okay. Thank you. Hey, Opie.
Hi.
We just got to item 1,
Okay.
so. Do we-
Sorry I'm late. We're dealing with some stuff.
You've been dealing with a lot of things. Do we want to go through the items and go back to the town manager's report, or just kind of keep jumping
I
as?
think we just do it now.
Okay.
Go back to him.
You.
So moving on, right?
I thought we just do his report now.
Okay,
and
yeah.
then-
It's quick. So the LVRT Council with all the towns, similar to the grant, the consortium grant they did for the scoping study for the trailheads, they want to do another one to purchase some equipment. They're in the early stages of it, so they basically unit pricing on bike racks and picnic tables. There's a 20% match, shouldn't be more than $5,000, so I've been told. And I just need a nod to go ahead with that, to be part of the consortium, which is Danville, St. Johnsbury, Walden, are the 3 towns, and Hardwick, if we so choose. There's that, and then the repeater grant for the police repeater is submitted tomorrow. We got quotes from 2 companies. We have email correspondence from, I think, 6 companies we contacted. So 2 gave us quotes, so that's enough for us to submit the grant. That's going in tomorrow. Tracy did a great job on that. I think we'll be favorable with that grant, so that's good. Sorry I'm late tonight. I was up at the PD trying to figure out some housing stuff. The Red Cross couldn't make it to Hardwick, so
Because of roads?
the roads. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you
Where are
serious?
they coming from?
Dead
You mean the
serious.
bare pavement, the
Dead
wet
serious.
pavement
Dead
roads?
serious.
Where are they coming
Barry,
from?
maybe?
Troy, New York, or Troy, Vermont. So they're trying to handle everything remote.
Jesus.
And it's just another one of those things. I probably have more, not on the top of my head right now. So.
Can we, pedestrian bridge pre-bid meeting?
Oh, yeah, we had a pre-bid meeting for the pedestrian bridge. We had 7 interested bidders, so we should have some competitive bidding, I hope. People seem to be pretty excited about the project. The time frame was a little bit more reasonable, so that's good.
That has to happen in conjunction with
The wall.
The wall.
Yep.
Okay.
And then we had a meeting with VIA, which is the architectural firm doing the complex, the town complex up here, the design. We looked at some preliminary sketches of the layout of the property. We're talking about the uses and the programs for the buildings. That's going well. I think that's going to be exciting. We're hoping to unveil some sort of a preliminary conceptual design by town meeting day.
Nice.
Will we be consulted at all in any of the process before that happens, or?
So we have, Eric has been at the meetings. Our community development coordinator, myself, the road foreman, and Hardwick Rescue have all been present. It's every other Wednesday at 2 o'clock. More than welcome to attend. As a select board is more than welcome to attend. If we're going to have more than 3 there, we need to warn it, obviously. But input is good at this point. I think I learned a lot yesterday about kind of what the architect is thinking, and I've got some feedback. I've been thinking about it for the last 24 hours, so I think there's a couple different variations we can do, but preliminarily it looks like it can work to have those 3 entities up there.
Where does that meeting take place? On Wednesday?
It's on a Zoom meeting.
Oh.
Yeah, and this last one was a site visit. So, did I cover everything here on that?
I think so.
So the answer
Yeah.
is, select board
The
will be
important
updated.
thing,
unless it
from my
shows
point
up.
of view, that you already hit, is that it looks like those things will fit. That all the programs will fit in that site.
Yeah.
So
The select board can be updated, they can be part of it, that's totally fine.
I think your question is, are we gonna get a report on it before
As
town
it-
meeting.
As things go, like,
Yeah.
you know, so
Yeah.
if we
Yeah.
met, we decided.
We have
It's gonna
no
be good.
delivery, we
Right.
haven't received anything yet, except for one spreadsheet of individual needs and square footage, which I'm happy to share. Yeah.
Which, you know, it'd be great if stuff like that was shared without. So I feel like I'm being left with two options.
Okay.
One, either show up, or B, get fed some information potentially sometime. You know what I mean? It's like, things, it'd be great if we could just be shared some stuff, like in our folder or whatever, as the project goes, like if you have numbers, or if you have a preliminary site plan.
Which we haven't been provided one.
Right.
It's a Mylar that he brought and rolled up and then left with it.
No, but when you get, I'm not
Yeah.
saying you haven't done it, I'm just
Yeah, yeah,
saying
yeah.
as things progress.
More than happy to share.
Option B is wait till you're done, then come and ask me, and then I'm gonna say no. And we go backwards, so, yeah. Because you can't have everyone at every meeting, because that will not be productive either.
It'd be hard to schedule.
Well, no, that's hard to move, I know how that
Yeah.
goes. I don't want to be the,
But I can give you an update, anything up to date that we've talked about and discussed.
it's good it's moving forward, I support.
Yeah.
Maybe we can plan on
Yep.
when there is something.
And I have another update on the West Woodbury. So we have actuals for last winter. I've submitted to the town. They're budgeting for potentially a 3-year agreement. And what they were paying was $6,000. The actuals was $8,400 and change. And they've been provided that. And they don't see a problem with the increase. So we just got to figure out how to structure those other 2 years.
Well, please structure it so the town of Hardwick is benefiting from it, not the town of Woodbury.
Okay?
Because if it isn't a benefit, not a break even, if it isn't a benefit to the town of Hardwick, we shouldn't be doing it. Bottom line.
By law, we can't make money on the town.
I didn't say anything about
So-
making money.
So, well, the benefit,
What's a potential benefit then?
I can figure them out if I've got to, but there's got to be, never mind.
I mean, I'm honestly curious, like, it's.
I don't know what it would be. It'd be shared use equipment. It'd be something that they have that we don't have.
Okay.
It would be something. There's something out there.
Some-
I mean, if we're doing it and we're losing, so we lost $2,500 last year. That's a benefit to
And
Woodbury.
wear and tear.
We can't charge, we can't make money, but we can lose money. So somebody's gotta figure out how we don't lose money, right?
well, we could just not do it.
That's fine too. I'm not saying that's the answer.
Isn't a part of the reason why we do it is because we're already plowing that section of road, so it's
Yeah.
not.
Well, no, we don't plow their
The
section.
we plow
Well,
the
we go up
We
Hardwick.
plow our section and
Yeah.
that has nothing to do with what,
But it wasn't a part of it with their schedule, it would be hard, I thought that was. the
yeah, it's
reason why.
hardship, very much a hardship for them to do it.
Yeah, yeah,
And
So-
we did it for years.
So for us to do it at a break even,
right.
So
and
we-
it's a benefit to them, it's a break even for us, that makes no sense to me as the guy trying to pay his taxes.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense to me, to do it that way. We got trucks that we can't pay for, we got equipment that we can't pay for, we got fuel that we can't pay for on our end, and we're doing something for another municipality that they benefit directly from, because they are not getting wear and tear on their trucks. They're not having any of the issues we're having with their help having to work an extra hour every time they go up there. They're getting benefit, benefit, benefit. We're getting no benefit, no benefit, no benefit. It shouldn't be that way.
Well, we're getting it, it
We're
sounds
getting
like,
on maybe a break even, dollars wise, which still isn't a benefit. I'm just saying, it shouldn't be a lose, there should be no loss, net loss for anything in Hardwick in doing this. Period. That's just the way I feel it should be, you know? And if that means they mow a section of roadside somewhere for us, whatever, figure it out, people. You guys don't like it when I micromanage.
well, at least we figured out the actuals, which is good.
Which is good, we're on the right path.
So
And it was
that's
close,
That's the first step, right?
and it wasn't extremely offset, so that's all good.
So that's you just communicating with the select board?
They're a road commissioner,
Okay.
and he communicates with his select board, or Woodbury Select Board.
Is there a road commissioner, Alfie? Is he the foreman and a road commissioner?
His title is road commissioner. I don't know if there's
Is
not.
that an elected?
I don't think so, but.
Some towns it is,
I
but
know
some
Chuck
towns.
was the road commissioner, that was his title, and Alfie took Chuck's place as the road
Right,
commissioner.
but Chuck was not the road foreman.
Correct.
He
And I
was
don't
the road
think,
commissioner.
and maybe Alfie's wearing both hats.
I don't know, because
I don't-
Harry did,
Harry wore both hats.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I don't, their structure's a little different.
yeah.
Thanks, Opie.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments for Opie? Okay, so we're gonna move back to item 2, select board to discuss the Vermont Fish and Wildlife's interest in acquiring 2 of the FEMA buyout properties and consider approving a letter of support.
Did we? No.
Which properties are these?
Yeah, I
know
couldn't
this
figure.
is, but I don't know where they are. Oh,
So this would be, 2 properties on Route 15 east after Fisher Folly. The next 2 properties on the same side of the road.
The one that
Where the
we,
debris was?
yeah,
Before Gilchrist's?
yeah.
That'd be one, and the other one would be the next one on the same side of the road as Gilchrist. The blue house that got hit by a car 8 years
The
ago.
entire property?
What's that?
They were gonna purchase the whole property?
Both. That's what they want to do.
Are people still living there? I think it's a great idea.
Their impact to the grand list.
Those 2 properties would come off the tax roll.
But they would be a pilot.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
They've already submitted for the buyout. They'd be coming off the tax roll as town properties off the tax roll. This is an opportunity.
So you put them on a pilot, right? That's the way I read it too.
Yes,
Is they're willing to fess up a little pilot in order to make sure that they stay part of the wildlife, fish and wildlife
yes.
infrastructure.
And I might have missed it, but is Fish and Wildlife going to take care of, would they take care of those buildings?
It would be theirs, right?
Or would we,
Well, the
Buyout.
way that the grant program works
Yeah.
is that it would come back through Vermont Emergency Management, we have the tear downs.
okay,
We would be working, they want to continue to have us be part of this so that we can work with the owners.
Okay.
It's easier for me to talk to the owners and for
Yeah.
Fish and Wildlife. And then the money would be there for them, that Vermont Emergency Management would be working with them
Okay.
on the tear downs.
okay.
Yeah.
It'd be structured the same as the other buyouts.
Yeah, we just wouldn't be doing the tear outs ourselves and
Correct.
getting reimbursed for them, the state would.
Yeah, I mean, we're not doing the tear
rest
downs
of
on the newest grouping from
Right.
FEMA right now anyways.
Right.
Vermont Emergency Management is taking care of them.
Okay,
Right, really the only change is we're not going to be the perpetual owners, as Fish and Wildlife is going to be, and with that comes a pilot payment, so,
Let's do it.
yeah.
I see no detriment, so does
There's a place right here for you to sign, Eric.
that
right
sounds
here.
like a motion, Eric.
Yeah, I make a motion that we deed those properties as Fish and Wildlife.
No, just a letter of support.
Yeah,
Oh, letter of support, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Seconded.
I can read you the letter you wrote here.
I saw the letter. I'll come sign it.
Yeah, I was gonna say the sample template, I
We'll-
put that
we'll
on our
spice it up a little
letterhead.
bit.
I put it on our letterhead and got it ready, so it's all
Yeah.
set.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Nays, abstentions, the motion passes for the letter of support. Item 3, select board to discuss Perry Lane right-of-way width.
Alright, so this is a good one. So Perry Lane was never laid out as our town road. So Perry Lane is the one off of Mill Street that goes up
Yep.
Yep,
between
Post
the
office.
Tracy's Cliff Joint parking lot, our property that we're trying to convey, and the Mill Street building where the Gagnon's video place was, now apartment building. So that road was never laid out as a town road. So there's no right of way that exists as a 3-rod right of way, okay? If we were going to assume that this was a town road laid out with a 3-rod right of way, the right of way would consume a considerable amount of that parcel, therefore making that project not feasible. I talked to our town council about this situation, and the thought was that we would provide them with a lease of said right-of-way that doesn't exist, so a lease will not work. So there's really, we're kind of in a sticky wicket here, and if we were to provide them with a lease, their funding would probably not go for that because it's leased property. But that's up to them to try to figure out. So we can't really lease something that's not defined. So the select board could define a right-of-way on that road, like we have a list of other roads with alternative right-of-ways, so not your normal 3-rod right-of-way.
Yeah, many right-of-ways are not
Right.
3-rod.
In the
So
village,
there's no, so that you're
Yeah.
just, and many of them are not
laid out,
laid out.
yeah.
So this is nothing new at all.
No.
Other than,
It's
it's the transaction with. for the
creating a
funding.
snafu for Vermont nuts.
But we can go in and we can say, we're laying this road out as it exists where the pavement is 16 feet, 18 feet, whatever it is.
Correct.
That's the road, period, to be done with it.
Yeah, and then we would probably have to do some public hearings
Right.
and go through that process. So we can move forward with that, but I just wanted to give you an update that that's the issue, and it's holding up the sale of that property.
Yeah, I mean, whatever we need to do is what my vote is. I mean, I don't know.
Why is it holding up the
Sale of the property if we don't have a right-of-way that's bothering the property.
It's the funding source that,
They're not comfortable
their
with,
funding source is, they're doing all this with public money, so you know how that goes. The funding
I do.
source is looking for, they want real estate, and they don't have it. As it exists now, it's kind of in limbo, whether it's ours or theirs or whose.
Right.
the survey of that lot shows the boundary line well into Perry Lane.
Yeah,
So really, we're not conveying what we see there, we're conveying something that's under Perry Lane.
yeah.
Which they're just not, they're not gonna take that as collateral, basically, is what the problem is.
Kristen, do you have anything to add? You
No.
pretty much nailed it.
Sure.
It's just a snafu in the funding source that's the issue.
I guess, it just seems to me like it's a little bit the reverse. It's almost like they're getting more land.
Well, it
It's
could
not like we
be.
have a right-of-way there that's impinging on them.
No, but there's a public, but if, now I'm getting a little bit beyond my legal,
I'm confused.
I'm getting a little bit beyond my legal deal,
Myself.
but what they're concerned about is having someone come back and say, your new building is in our right of way.
It would be, the parcel that they would be purchasing is under Perry Lane.
Right, so and it, only because it's not defined.
Right.
So all we have to do is define it, draw a line, and everything's fine.
Well, no, there's a process, we have to lay it out.
Well, yeah, I know that, Eric. I know there's a process, but what they're looking for is black and white. You own to the left of the black, I own to the right of the black. That's what they're looking for.
We already
And we can
maintain
do
Perry
that
Lane
very
anyway, we
easily.
plow it, right? There's
Then
not.
we should,
Yeah, I think we should.
but it's gonna take us time, so we should get that ball rolling, but we can't. Yeah, we should just tell them that we'll do it, but it's a process and we're gonna have to work through it.
I'm guessing they still got plenty of process on their end.
Well, we have, their option goes until June or July.
Yeah.
So, we might be able to get it done.
I mean, we don't, honestly, I mean, my only other thought would be to cut that road right off, but that probably makes some people upset. I don't know how many people actually use that, though. I don't think a lot of people
I
use
use
it.
it.
And I as well, but that's, you and I are not the normal. I'm
Those are
assuming the
really-
people that live up there would really appreciate it staying, but.
The only two properties on that are that one that we're selling and the apartment building, right? Because the
No,
upper
not really, all
one,
of those houses up on top.
but the upper one has access through the,
Yeah, but it's not, yes, it does have access, but it's,
yeah.
you'd be cutting somebody's
Yeah.
access off, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
We'll come up with a plan and present it to the select board with.
Well, I think
with
we're
the
ready.
Schedule of public hearings.
So it sounds like, do we need to make action tonight, or do we need to have an item next meeting saying the action is to lay out Perry Lane?
I think I'll make a motion right now to ask town manager's office to proceed and forward in laying out Perry Lane,
Officially laying out.
officially laying out Perry Lane as a town road, or town highway, whatever we call it.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 I don't see it being, I can't see where that's gonna negatively affect us. If anything, it's only gonna positively affect us by having an actual laid out street.
I don't know if it's not gonna change the size of the parcel that's on there. I don't know. I'll figure it out. We'll
Right.
keep you updated.
Great, motion passes. Item 4, select board to consider approving 3 new policies. 1, property management, 2, financial management, and 3, cost principles needed for federal grants.
So moved.
Wow.
Second.
I mean, they're boilerplate stuff, right?
Yeah, they had to cite all the
Right.
specific uniform grant guidance. all that stuff.
Definitions and all that.
Yeah, and what actually prompted this is, well, I will say the financial management one, the auditors have been recommending that one anyway, but the other 2 were not really on our radar. But they're good to have, but the Vermont Department of Libraries, the big grant that the library got for the expansion, they have a list of 5 policies that we had to have in place before we could get any money from them. And unfortunately, we only had 2 out of 5, so we had to create 3 new ones. As you noted, I just want to make a couple notes about this. One is that they do indicate, that we're going to look at these annually and revise them if we need to. I am planning on a grant training for any staff that touches grants in any sort of way in February, where they're going to get some training on grants and all of these policies, and that way we can have like a formal training once a year and be able to document it for our single audit that everybody's having this grant training annually, which will just make it better for us, really. So that's the plan. Yeah.
Are there any questions or comments about the policies? Great, we have a motion from Danny and a second from Tim. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Item passes. Great, thank you for that, Casey. Item 5, business manager to recap the entire budget, all departments except recreation. They will, except Jason just got here. So I'll omit that part. So we're on to the budget.
Okay, so I will put recreation up on the screen if I can. It'll take me a second here to get. I have a packet right here with everything, yeah. Okay, so it's right here. Share my screen here. Okay. Oops, sorry. So if Jason wants to talk about recreation first, recreation is the only department that we haven't actually seen yet. And then from there, we can start going through and working on it. So go for it, Jason, you have the floor.
Sure. I'll make it short and sweet, because we actually don't want to do much with our budget. We're kind of at a stalemate, kind of stagnant with our programming. We did decide that removing mileage, I know it's $100, we're not doing anything with mileage on the line item. So it's been removed, it's up there right now, you can't see it. So removing mileage, and I mean, could we put that $100 into the youth program or community programming? We don't want to increase the budget at all, we don't want to decrease it. So try to keep it the same.
Jason, can I just ask a clarifying question
Yeah,
about
go
that? Do you mean changing it from the last year's budget or the actual for last year? Like you want to keep it at,
21,565.
Yes.
okay.
That's correct.
I just wanted to make sure that,
sorry
okay.
about that,
great.
yeah. And we don't do anything mileage, so we just take that whole line item right out of there. And hopefully put the $100 to youth programming or youth programming. We haven't gone over budget, or we tried to keep things under budget. We've seen an increase in swim programming numbers, which increased that invoice amount that we're receiving. And I could be wrong here as well. Green Up Day, I think we've had some effects financially because tires are coming in like it's a rainstorm. So, Casey, does that come out of our budget as well? Yeah.
It
So
does, except for we get $400 from Central Vermont Solid
Okay.
Waste Management District, so it's still an expense because obviously our tire expense is
Yep.
significantly more than $400, so, yeah.
So our very small committee has decided that we would like to keep it the same, not increase and not decrease.
Jason, can I ask what the
Yep.
maintenance line item is?
That would be for things like Macville, the ice rink, which we're not 100% sure if we're doing that this year. A lot of our line items are based on uncertainties and unpredictability. We can't really maintain the ice rink if we don't have it up. So obviously there's a tiny little pump track. We're exploring the idea of building a bigger pump track. So I think keeping the maintenance line item where it's at would be ideal, and not playing and tweaking that too much.
And for Macville, that's like trash and sometimes a porta potty,
Yeah,
right?
I'm just going up and
Okay.
checking in on the grills. I found benches in the river before, but they yank out, not the river, the pond. So, whatever needs maintenance, just keeping that there. Otherwise, we have to borrow from Peter to pay Paul from different line items. That makes it tricky, I think.
And for the, sorry to ask so many questions.
Yep, no, it's
Does
fine.
anybody else have any other questions?
Yep.
For the ice rink, so that would be, if you're not doing it this year, that doesn't really affect this budget anyway, because this is for the following winter, right? This
Yeah,
is-
so
okay.
we've already purchased all materials. We've
Okay.
had it sort of up and running before.
Okay.
But with maintenance, obviously, it's like bringing my snowblower down, putting fuel in it, and things like that. So, or if we need to get new hardware, or hey, the plastic is ripped again, things like that. So, like I said, a lot of that's unpredictability. We haven't really asked for an increase in our budget in years. We're always under budget, which gives the town back whatever the surplus. And so, we don't want to be greedy, ask for money we don't need.
I have a question.
Sure. How you doing, Eric?
Hi, Jason. Can you explain to us why, or the purpose of having a paid recreation coordinator and how that benefits the town? I know we have a lot of other committees that don't have any such paid coordinator, and so why is it necessary for rec?
Well, there's a lot of things that happen, and I think this, if you have a volunteer person to do like the egg hunt, it's a lot of time that goes into little things that people don't think about. I get paid 5 hours a week at maximum. David and I have talked a few times about exploring the ideas of more of a rec department-based operation rather than a rec committee. Right now, our numbers are low, we're having a hard time recruiting people. There are times where I say to myself, like, wow, you know, what does a rec coordinator really do in this town? And I agree with you on that one, so I'm not gonna give you a BS answer, but I certainly don't do it for the money, to be honest with you. I think we need things to do, even if it's like the fund run, we're seeing an increase in our registrants for that, and ideas and getting volunteers and people rally to do it. You know, it takes time.
So,
takes energy.
so to kind of take you off the hot seat,
Yep.
it's really that question for me is not so much about what you're doing as, so we've developed, now we have the Lamoille Valley Rail Trail.
Yep.
We have, you know, biking has taken off like, you know better than anyone, how explosive that's gonna be over the
Yeah.
next 5 years. We have Macville, we have a new park we're putting in over here. You know, we have potentially, at one point, we were thinking about doing something up where the motel was, is park related.
Yep.
We have all these parks and rec, we
Yep.
have Hardwick Trails, we have, you know, we have Wright Farm Road, we have Hardwick Woodbury Rail Trail, we have all these other parks and rec type things. So the discussion that we've been trying to have is how do we either combine or grow, or, you know, do we change this paid position to be more encompassing to you know, to do exact, because it's not about the need, we all understand it's there. The issue is it's there threefold, right? So, you know, we have, you know, a little bit of paid staff up at Hardwick Trails, we got a little bit of paid staff in the rec department, we got a little bit of paid staff here. You know, how are we gonna make this so that we can have a better functioning Parks and Rec department? So that's what kind of the question's about, and
Yep.
and no one has come up with a very solid answer to that. Now, obviously, we're pretty fortunate because the trails and the rec do a really good job of coming here every year with minimal increases. You know, they're never asking, we're not talking big numbers. When we all talk about this, we're talking more about maybe us not achieving the level that we want to achieve more than anything else, you know what I mean? It's like we want to do better.
And also
It's not
being
that, it's not that it's
connected,
costing
yeah.
us a shit ton of money, but I think we need to do a better job of coordinating that effort. And so that's my speech, I guess. It's not about, I totally get you're not doing it for the money.
Right. Well, I hear you, the word you're looking for is collaboration. If all these entities came together and collaborated better, there might be a better department. A rec committee doesn't do much besides allocate money and where to
Right.
put it for certain activities, right?
Right, a committee's a planner, right, they're the thinkers, the
Right,
big
I'm the
picture.
Peter Pan, people follow, and all this ag run for the fun run. So I would say, if there's a way to segue into more of a department-based and hire somebody to oversee these things, the town is still gonna do have to do some of the maintenance, right?
Right.
Or find different volunteers. But if you completely shut down the committee and don't have a department, who's gonna go up and do the Macville stuff? Who's gonna go and do the egg hunt? Who's gonna do the fun run? Because you're not gonna find volunteers. We found that loud and clear.
It's certainly at the level of, it would be probably the paid person,
Yeah.
the department person would include Hardwick Trails, Macville, it'd have to include everybody. As well as my suggestion, you even could throw a little building, whatever. You can always work these job descriptions out to be
Yeah.
what you can do, but.
Stowe's a good example of what a good department is, and Warsaw is leaning that way too, where they have to get garbage cans in the morning rather than the highway crew or whatever.
Right.
Water the plants on the bridge, things like that.
Exactly.
I could see us getting there, but that takes revenue, and once we start to see that fiscal.
Well, I think the opportunities now, though, this is the opportunity to benefit from the recreational revenue. We're on the forward edge of that thing.
Right.
It's just pierced the town of Hardwick, a little pierced right now.
Right.
We need to be able to manage that and be ready for that, which means being a little bit ahead of it.
Yep.
That's why, I ran a nonprofit for 20 years, and everybody I've always worked with got upset with me because I come up with these harebrained ideas to to do something and grow something, and I never, ever, ever thought about the money first. You know, because you can't think about the money first, or you don't have these visions of how you're gonna move
Yeah.
forward.
Well, as you know, with a nonprofit, I recommend getting some data first, so you have like proof to say, we can hire somebody on for 40 grand a year, or however much, whatever time allotment that is. But looking at the financial data first to say, this is the revenue we're taking in from the rail trail or from this or that, that's to support that. You might have a hard push from other people.
Yeah.
I think the revenue that we're taking in is in the businesses.
Right.
And
I
I
agree.
think that we have, what you're saying is we have countless outdoor recreational assets at our fingertips, in
Yes.
our control, that we need to maintain to enhance the user experience that comes to Hardwick. And they would want to return to Hardwick and stay in Hardwick and spend money in Hardwick and recreate in Hardwick. And I think, Danny, you're hitting the nail on the head with, we need to maintain those assets. And we need somebody in place to do that, or a system in place to do that.
And the difficulty is, you're absolutely right about, and I've already heard this 2 or 3 times in the last 2 weeks since the discussion's come up, that the benefactors are the businesses. And the problem with that is there's very limited, that the benefactors become very limited at that point. And even though they're benefiting from it, it's not enough of a benefit so that they can automatically pay an extra 20% taxes, you know, it's not that big of a tangible benefit. So to figure out how, yeah, the businesses are the ones benefiting directly.
And
I'm not benefiting down Maxwell Road. I haven't made a dime. Nothing's gone up 30% in my revenues this week because of the rail trail, you know. So as a taxpayer, that's the difficult part, is when you say it's benefiting the town, it is. But
it's also the user experience, and we have users of these assets that live in the town of Hardwick.
No,
and-
that's all good, but
Yeah.
still you know, you still have the grumpy old man down in Macville.
Sure.
That doesn't use the rail trail and doesn't benefit financially from it, but if his tax dollars are picking up the garbage and mowing the lawn,
Yeah.
then it's still my obligation in this seat to say something about that.
Right,
And to figure it out, I don't have the answer. I'm not saying I got the answer. But I think part of the answer, and again, we're right at the beginning of this. This is just starting, okay? Just beginning. We're starting to see the tip of the benefits from this thing. So let's take a real good look at where the benefits are hitting, who's benefiting from it. And that's, unfortunately, like it or not, that's where in my opinion, that is the only place we can look financially, you know, to begin with. If you're benefiting, you gotta be the leader in keeping things rolling.
So outdoor recreation, the gross national product is the second largest in the country, $600 billion a year.
I'm kind of familiar with that.
So, I mean, there's financial benefit all the way around to maintaining and protecting these assets, the outdoor assets. So,
Shut
I mean,
up,
that's
shut up, pay
separate,
my
that's-
taxes is what you're saying.
I mean, that's,
well, how much are you, at the grumpy old man on that doesn't use the rail trail, but like how much are they willing to invest in their?
Certainly willing to,
Yeah,
but I think, you know, if we don't keep an eye on it, then that goes away really quickly.
yeah.
You know, and we're not, everything's to scale. And I used to say this all the time, because believe it or not, I know quite a bit about outdoor
Yeah.
recreation. You know, everybody always used to say, Groton, ATVs, we need the ATV in Groton, we need the ATV in Groton. Well, Groton has a gas station, a restaurant, and a store, and they're all in a 400 square foot building, all of them, in that one 400 square feet, one owner. So you could bring 1 million ATVs to Groton, and there's only gonna be one guy that's benefit. And you have to have that, you know, you gotta figure out how to make that work. Because everybody in Groton's putting up with 100,000 ATVs, you know what I'm saying? So it's one positive and a shitload of negatives, so we don't do that, right? That's a bad idea, figure it out. Well, we've got a lot of positives right now, But the negatives are gonna be coming in the back door, and we're starting to see it already with maintenance costs, equipment, consortiums, you know, you must have knew what I was gonna think about that one.
Of course I do. I still have to bring it up.
I know, yeah, I know you do, but you know what I'm saying, it's like, that's not the
Jason?
way,
So to piggyback on what you're saying though, I would support this committee and this budget going into more of an organized department. On top of that though, you're gonna increase this budget by at least $30,000 to
Oh, yeah.
$50,000 by hiring somebody to run this sort of programming. So that's something that you said, like the grumpy old man, why are my taxes going up for something I don't even use?
right, but the grumpy old man is the guy that's telling you that you need to do that to make sure that it's managed to the best. If the grumpy old man doesn't, it's not that he doesn't want to pay for his share or pay for his grandkids' share. It's the grumpy old man wants to make sure we're doing it to the best of our ability, and it's costing the non-participant, because some guys don't want to pay at all, you know. I'm not that guy, but I want it to be something that, I want to be able to pay my taxes,
Right.
you know? So, yeah, I totally get it's gonna cost money as always to make money, you know, but we're not gonna solve it this year, but I think we need to stay vigilant about the discussion.
So Jason, how do you feel about taking the recreation coordinator salary out of the recreation budget?
I still do what I do. I probably do more work than 5 hours a week doing emails or like
So,
even our committee meetings, trying to come up with ideas or meeting with people like, oh, you thought about this? You know, in passing, we do our best work sometimes. And I feel like I spend more street talk with people about, you know, the pickleball court or how we're able to basketball court, things like that, that I do, you know, $5 hours on paper for $20 an hour.
yeah, I don't.
I'll donate that money to the.
Yeah, but I don't want to do that. If anything, I want to put another $5,000 in there. Because as we just barely said, in order to move forward and make it better, it's going to cost us money.
Right.
And I'm not going to take his $5,000 away from him to help this budget this year, I can tell you that for sure.
Okay.
I don't,
I'm not into cutting,
I
I
think
don't know
that's-
what needs to be cut in this budget proposal.
that's
we
pretty
have.
small potatoes to be cut in this budget.
Well, and it
but-
defeat our purpose. I mean,
Yeah.
if anything, we need to be building this
But I
fund
think
up.
you've heard tonight, Jason, that we're interested, we've talked a lot about this, it comes up at a lot of different meetings.
sure it
Just,
does. Yeah.
just about recreation in general and the town's,
I think it could be a lot better.
yeah. So it's
in
up
a
to
different-
us, it's up
basically
to
a
us to
different
really,
format.
100% agree. If it was more department based, we've talked about this numerous times.
Yeah.
The committee is an interesting factor in all of this because I can have the best ideas, the committee can have the best ideas. All it takes is two people to shoot it down. Swim lessons are a great example of that. When I first started, it was sink or swim, and we all sunk for 2 years until we got a committee that was like, we have kids, we are community minded, X, Y, and Z, and we finally did that. You remove the committee, you don't need to worry about that. You can say, this is a great idea, I've done my homework, I'm the one in control, I don't need to worry about 5 people voting on something. That's
I
just my
agree
opinion.
that, I mean, that's, committees are kind of old school nowadays anyway.
Okay. Good.
just the one comment is more, I don't know if it's a question for Casey about this budget, is, I'm not proposing changing it at all, but if we could get the youth programming to be more like the actual, and then the community programming to be more like the actual, it might just be, I don't think it's taking any money away, it's just making it so it's a little more even. So like, if the youth program was $7,000, and then the community programming was then $7,500, then it's just closer to the, I know that it doesn't really matter, like, you're gonna spend money, it doesn't change the bottom line at all, it's just a little bit closer to like what the,
More appeasing to the eye.
I wish those two line items could be married because when if this town does segue, those line items are gonna disappear. It's gonna be one lump sum basically, if I'm not mistaken. Because right now, like, oh, is it community programming, is it, you know, youth programming?
Why do they
It's all
have to,
community.
what
It's
programming,
all
why do they have to be different? Why
I
can't
don't
they
know.
just be programming?
And that's what I was born into years ago when I started this. We
How
have
would you like to change it right now?
to one line.
We have the
All
power.
community programming.
Casey, you good with that?
Yeah, we're gonna work on the budget. I mean, I'm gonna have to pull it up in Excel, but yeah, we can do that.
No, it makes sense to me, because again, to his point, that it's just a management nightmare because somebody's gonna say, we don't have it in community, if they don't want it, community, so then you have to have that whole argument.
You know, it'd be a great
Why are you
thing to
taking it
say.
out of youth? You know, you know how this goes. You've been
Well,
there.
it would be less confusing to somebody coming into a rec department coordinator position or whatever, to see
Yeah.
just one lump sum under one umbrella versus like, what is this, what is it? It's what happened to this historically,
Well,
so.
it allows someone to have the flexibility,
Yeah.
like we just said, to do what they want to do without.
Right.
So just my quick historical knowledge of that from when I was on the committee, that was because they're, at least for the youth program side, they wanted to make, the committee wanted to make sure that that wasn't being spent in other places, because those programs are the ones that
Well,
cost.
the senior
a lot of
citizens
money.
and the
Right.
kids, there's a difference.
Right.
They can
I
go
don't,
wrong.
it doesn't matter to me either way, but that was like for the
That's under-
swim, the swim program's pretty expensive, or it
Right.
used to be, and it, they, like, just, but that's up to the committee to make sure
Think
those are
about it,
spent
we were funding
appropriately.
the senior citizen center out of the rec committee budget, so.
Well, they should be
We were
fine.
doing, we were
They
doing
need
the
to
best.
recreate too.
Well, they were, you know, they did. All right, let's go. Good job. Let's
Any
get to the
other
tough ones.
questions for Jason? Eric, do you have any questions?
I'm good, let's move on.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah, Michael, I think it's good.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
Hey,
Okay.
tell them to stop lobbing snowballs off that top level over there too. Like,
Or the chucking snowballs.
they were throwing them down at some,
Rubber
must've been some of their buddies down on the sidewalk, cause the kids on the sidewalk's mother was there too, and she was getting it. And they were putting the snowballs right to them. I'm like, boy, that's a good house to live in right there, man.
Yeah, because they get caught. Can't go anywhere in the fences.
All right, so let's start at the top then. We've literally seen all departments, the first draft. So starting with revenues, projected to be up 7.6%. I don't have a lot of insight on where this could change unless we budget anticipated grant revenue, but that's always up in the air. We haven't really done it unless we know for sure there are grants that we're gonna get, but that's up for discussion. In the current draft, the increase is 11.89%. Looking at the summary, biggest increases are line items, which a lot is to do with capital set aside for equipment. Office expenses was mostly due to, we threw a placeholder for a potential new position in there, project manager or director of public works, whatever that may be. Maybe it ends up being in highway. And then the police department for an additional officer. So those are the big ones, if you look at the summary on this page right here. So highway at this point is up 3.77%, about 40,000. Mostly just health insurance, equipment, salary and benefits, and equipment expense are the biggest drivers there.
So what's the equipment expense?
That's all the like repairs and all that. We spent 90,000 in 2024. So that's why I went from 65 to 80.
Right, but that's telling me that, I mean, we only budgeted 65 for last year, right, the year we're in.
The year we're in right now.
Right,
we
so
have
if it was
65
90
budgeted.
Well, I'm just saying 90 is a much larger number than 65, so what?
So I increased to 80.
Right, but what happened? Why is it 90?
We had some really big repairs on a couple trucks, like 20 grand each.
So,
Like that's the 2019 CV, I think we had 25 grand into that probably. And then we had truck number 4, which is the next one to be traded. That one probably had 10 grand. We also had, I'm trying to think if this was the year we had, no, not the F-550, not that one.
So
Tool
basically
cap, we had
just-
probably
Tool
another-
cap repair.
Yeah.
just
Big tool cap
repairs.
Yeah.
And so equipment expense, that's chains, tires, plow blade, it's all encompassing.
Hard parts.
It's
Right.
parts and labor for the equipment, for the trucks. And it was a couple of big repairs that made that go way up. But anyway, let's just go through them all and then start talking about where we want to make changes. Police department, basically the increase is the desire to add an additional officer. Mike and Opie talked about that last time, so that's where the increase is, basically.
Can I ask just a really quick question about that while we're, just so I understand the number difference of FTEs? So it's currently we have how many people, or I guess in last year's budget, so it's adding one person, but what are we at in total? I know it's like some part-time.
We have 4
so-
full-time in chief,
Yeah,
and we have a part-time.
okay, so this would be 5
5 full-time.
full-time, okay, great. So 5 full-time plus the chief plus part-time,
Right.
okay.
Yeah, 1 part-time that, yeah, he's pretty limited on when he can work, like 1 shift a week, so, yeah.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Then we'll come to office is a similar situation. This is where I put that additional placeholder into the town manager office staff payroll. So going from 5 employees to 6 under that umbrella. And then we have, so the salary and benefits associated with that person. That's basically and then the other big one is managed IT services. So that's really the biggest increase right there. Another position, salary increase, health insurance increase, and the managed IT services. Other payrolls flat. Okay, I'll go through. Nothing too exciting in buildings. Possibly doing a little bit adjusting. Public safety is going to, we're looking at reducing some of the cleaning hours at the public safety building by about 4 hours a week. Hence this decrease. But probably what happens is those would likely shift over to the library instead. And so all of these categories are pretty well flat.
So
$200 difference.
why is the library not in our buildings, with our buildings, like everyone else? I asked that earlier before the meeting started, but.
Well, they have their own fund balance for one.
That wing of our government is structured differently than the other buildings. That's the only explanation I can give.
So, because when they have money left over, it's like they have their own fund balance. It doesn't go back to the general
Yeah,
fund.
I don't understand.
So that's-
I'm losing track of this library thing, how it works.
It's similar to the electric department, really. They operate kind of on their own, under their own purview with their,
But we don't-
their trustees.
But we don't have their assets listed in this report,
So the library's assets?
or the light department.
Well, no, it's not like apples to apples, but it's just a
Well,
separate.
that's why I'm trying to figure out why it's not LP. I'm trying to be a nice guy here, but I'm trying to figure out why it's not. So,
Isn't it the case that the town owns the library building but doesn't really run the library?
That could be.
Well, essentially the trustees oversee.
all right, so we don't have a good.
It's like the
let's just-
structure, I don't know.
But if we give them
So the
money-
answer is we don't know.
It's the structure of how the organization is.
It's the same reason that when we allocate a dollar amount to them and they don't spend it all, they keep it as a fund balance. It doesn't come back to the general fund.
And
I don't like
why does that happen?
It's probably because of how the libraries are written in state statute.
So does it work the same way for the Historical Society and for the townhouse? Or is that, because they're also kind of separate organizations running but we own the buildings and we're
We
also.
just have a
running.
lease with them.
So it's
They
just a-
lease the
just a simple
buildings.
lease,
They lease the
okay.
buildings, that's all, so.
Okay,
So all library expenses are kept like in their separate budget. That's why we don't have the buildings in here.
Was there,
Plus, they have their own budget that we don't even get to see, and
Right, and then we're giving
I
them,
never
we're
heard of
giving them
such a-
money.
What do you mean
Yeah,
you don't
and
get to
then-
see? It's right, this,
no,
that's,
it's
it
not.
is here.
It's not the entire, we brought this up at the last meeting, in that this is the budget that they asked for the town, but it's not
they run
their,
two sets of books
But
over
it-
there.
Because
but
they,
it's
the
not
friend,
their, but it's not their total operating budget. So like the operating budget from the library,
Well, it
We're-
is, unless there's stuff for the Friends that we don't know about, because this is.
but we know based on their project that this is not the like,
And
The
can we see-
building fund is completely separate.
I think
and can
that's a
we
part
see
of
their
what-
fund balance? You know, can we see their?
Yes, it's on here. Their fund balance at the end of 2024 was like $4,800.
it's just right at the bottom there.
It's
the
right at the very
$4,800.
bottom. They carried over $4,800.
So where's the,
But can we, oh, go ahead.
I'm not sure where the conversation is going, but I just wanted to back up Eric's statement that the library building was donated to the town on December 31st, 1897. Christmas, or New Year's Eve, there was a town meeting. Clearly, they didn't do New Year's Eve the way we do now. But it was given to the town, the building.
We need you here at all of our meetings, Wiz, to keep us straight.
so, and that's why there's the building budget, correct? In the library, we have the building.
Their building expenses are built into their budget.
Yeah.
Right.
But it seems possible, if it were beneficial to us somehow, it seems possible that we could list the library with all these other buildings with the insurance, maintenance, and utilities if we wanted to look at it that way.
so,
Yeah.
well, so when I'm looking at this budget, where are all the grants and stuff for
Okay,
for the
so
building? Like, where's the bond? The bond payment is,
That's out of
the
capital.
bond payment is in line items.
well, I know.
That's out of the, it's because that comes out of capital general fund. Okay, so it seems like we've skipped ahead to the library, but can we just continue going down through these and then focus on where we want to? Would that be all right? Okay, so then, fire department, very flat, difference $926. Line items is showing a pretty significant increase. That is related to capital set aside and equipment primarily, and some auditing expense. Those are the biggest ones there, and about $6,000 for rescue. So it's basically the capital set aside is your biggest increase, a total of $85,000 more. That's most of the increase in totality.
And that doesn't include the, I mentioned this at the last meeting, about the equity committee. So this is still showing the $500.
Correct.
That was the,
right.
this is the old draft, or the
Right, because
draft
this is
then.
supposed to be the working meeting where
Okay.
we pull up the Excel and make changes
Yeah.
and, correct. And so this scenario, I have the capital equipment schedule. There's an option 1 and an option 2. So the option 1 was the first scenario that I presented at the first November meeting with the lower set aside and the scenario of borrowing for the chassis and buying the body.
So we can't have two scenarios without showing the effect of the second part of one of the
Each
options.
Well, right, but I can
Right.
only do that, like, that's why this is a working meeting, like, I'll change the figure and we'll see what that does. Like,
Okay.
right now, it's the higher amount, so if you're trying to make cuts.
Right, but my
we'll
point
look at
is,
the lower
my point
amount.
is, one of these options involves a payment, which won't be made in this budget.
Correct,
We need to have that payment in this budget to see the effect, is my point.
which is
Because
fine,
the following year, we will, you see what I'm saying, we're only not gonna have a payment this one time, and it's only because of the timing of the whole thing. Because if we're only purchasing half and we're financing half, annually, those two will have to be in our capital fund. That's all I'm saying.
right, so when we get to the point of actually making changes, what does this do to the bottom line,
Let's,
that we can do that.
okay, I'm ready. I'll be quiet till
Okay.
then.
So the option
Or we
one,
could just
option
get there and
two.
do it. One of
Right.
the two.
Well, this is part of the recap.
All right.
Capital fire equipment, there's really nothing too exciting about that. It's gonna increase $10,000 over last year. It's pretty straightforward. Capital road equipment, looking at keeping the amount the same as last year. General fund, same thing, keeping the amount the same as last year.
So, sorry, Casey, can I just
Yeah.
ask a quick question? Or do your recap, I'll ask it later. Keep going.
Then we get to the library. Since our last meeting, I met with Diane and Daphne and we did some additional work on it. It was at a 17% increase, we're at 12 now. So we've cut out about 5% off of that. And then recreation and trails, we just talked about recreation trails is super flat. It's basically the same, $28 difference. So now, I'm gonna pull up this in an Excel document and then we can start actually, people can make suggestions, I can change the numbers, we can see what it does, you can ask questions, let's, yeah.
So I had just a quick thought about the new role that we're talking about, the new bigger role is that's in the town manager staff line, right? The project manager, whatever the title is.
Yeah.
I was thinking about our discussion earlier and about the $75,000. I'm thinking, since that's supposed to be flood related, we don't know exactly how much of that person's time is going to be flood based, that if we allocated half of that grant, which is basically $40,000 towards that role for next fiscal year, then that would still leave us with $30,000 to do other projects, but that would take that item down quite a bit, that staff, if we were to fund that with that grant revenue. Not in total. We had talked earlier about, Opie, you weren't here, but we had talked, Eric's idea was to fund that position completely with that $75,000 grant. And then there were some other
You mean the
ideas.
budget adjustment?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm just thinking if we did half or a quarter or a third with that grant, that's still kind of a Band-Aid for the first year, but it's also a new position. And then then we still have money left over to do other things if we need to. So it's just an idea.
Do we, in the revenue, do we have that 75,000 in there for this, or we probably don't, right?
Well, it came in,
It came in, it's sitting in unearned right now.
But it's not in this
unspent.
budget though, it's revenue.
No. It could be if we want to put it there and then as a revenue and then have an expense that it would help to offset.
But-
Yes.
But that's not gonna change our. Well,
it might-
It
Yeah,
does,
well-
it changes what you need to collect
Right.
in property taxes. Because it's not,
Exactly.
yes,
Right.
correct,
Right.
that's what it
right,
changes.
yeah.
And it's a way to have it show up that's fairly clear.
So could we, could we try and see, since we're just kind of putting things in, try and see what basically having $40,000 towards, I don't know how you put it in there, but $40,000 in revenue for that position, like what that changes it to?
What if we put in 75,000 because we're gonna take that whole 75,000
Right.
in? We could spend it all this year
Right.
that we're looking at.
Or next year, yeah.
I mean, we could say we're doing it for this, but the bottom line is we're just running for the number.
Right.
So we did good.
It's a little bit.
We added $75,000 so far. This is going well. Not sure how we come up with doing this right off the get-go, but good job.
Well, somebody else mentioned
Okay,
it
so
earlier.
that
Eric
instantly, your revenue increase is now 15.49% instead of 7.61. And then it changes it doesn't change the budget increase, but then the property taxes that you need to collect is less. So I put it in there as budget adjustment act for now, 75,000.
And it was before the property tax was 12%? Something like that?
13.
13, okay. So
13.
now it's down to 10.
Is 13.22, and now it's 10.77, so about 2.5%.
That's better.
what other.
Well, it is, but it did,
It still doesn't change this budget increase.
No.
Yeah.
It just changes what you need to collect in taxes. So are there any other areas that people want to play around with, like scenarios that we can look and see what it does to the bottom line?
I'd like to look at the capital equipment schedule, and I'd like to look at, we talked about last time, maybe we keep the trucks a little longer, and maybe we rehab the bodies. I don't know if we have any numbers on what it would cost to rehab the body on the trucks, but I'm just wondering if we could slide around our replacement schedule a little bit and see what that does. If we could get the cost to come down on this budget, I think it would have a pretty big impact on our overall budget. But
Okay,
I
so,
could.
so then if we look at the bottom here, dump trucks are still every 8 years. Are you thinking of bumping that to every 10? And then we did 6 and 7 every 10 years, truck 5 every 6 years. So that went from 5 to 6. Are there any particular ones specifically that you want to try a longer duration on, Eric?
Well, I mean, I'm not really sure. I don't know where the balance tips from, you know, are we better off if we keep a truck 10 years instead of 8 years, do we end up paying more in maintenance such that it's a wash or maybe even hurts us? I don't really know. But it feels to me that we pay a lot in maintenance on these trucks even when they're pretty new.
Yes. most
So I'm
definitely.
wondering, what if we keep them 10 years? Well, I mean, would they last 10 years?
Sure.
they do.
They do.
If we take care of
And
it.
so, go ahead.
I just said they can last 10 years.
So, I mean, yeah, what if we take the dump trucks 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we change the schedule to make them 10 years? And maybe, is there one that needs to go now anyway? Like, is the first one that's scheduled, does that need to be traded for some reason?
The current one is the 2017, right?
No, it would be great to have, you know, maintenance records and, I mean, I know that you guys sit there and say, well, truck 4 had this, but, I mean, sit down and look at and see what the expenses have been on truck 4. You know, see, you know, are we putting twice as many tires on truck 7? You know, the numbers, if you have these records, you can look at them and say, you can answer these questions, Eric.
Yeah, I have all I have is dollar amounts on how much is
That's right,
spent
because we're not
per
keeping,
vehicle.
we're not keeping complete enough records on our equipment to know what we should be doing. You don't just know these things. You know, it's science-based, it's numbers-based, you have to, the information is there, it needs to be looked at it.
Can't we make executive decisions as well if we get to year 8 or whatever and say, hey, this truck's got a lot.
Well, all we're doing is planning here,
Right,
so
right.
we do that anyway, because we always have the discussion like we are for the truck we just traded, which I'm not sure we finished on that one, but we can go back to it sometime, but you know what I mean, we do that. This is just about what we're trying to plan to when we need to spend money,
And what we need to put away this budget.
what we need to put away. So what we're essentially doing is saying, the best that we can do at this time is to plan on trading every 10 years.
Right.
And if, you know, we have to trade at 8 years, because we got one that had a catastrophic failure, which honestly, could absolutely happen 100%, and likely will. But there's a lot of different things that are changing, like, you know, we could keep an extra truck around. There's no reason, because the problem, one of the other issues of all this equipment stuff is when it comes trying to get rid of them, they're not worth anything. I mean, you can buy a 10-wheeler that we get rid of, 8 years old, for $40,000, and the new one is $340,000. So you know that there's a lot of use still in that 8-year-old truck. It might cost us $30,000 on year 10, but it might go to year 15. You know what I'm saying? And you gotta be able to be fluid enough, I think. We need to be fluid enough to be able to make those decisions. We need to have really good record keeping in order to know what that equipment, shuffle that equipment.
Well, that would also help the longevity of that equipment.
Right.
As well,
In a sense.
if there's accountability for that maintenance and.
So, I mean, I don't see how we have any choice but to really get on the ball on our equipment scheduling as far as knowing what we're spending and making fluid decisions, just like you say.
Yeah.
So, I know it's not simple the way this spreadsheet is organized, but if we did push all those the 4 trucks to 10-year schedules, what does that do to our right-hand column?
So,
Give me just a minute to make the adjustment.
yeah, so Eric,
That's not necessarily what you're saying.
this is fine, this is all fine, this is all good talking. I guess I should have spoke up earlier and said, is everyone good with the library budget being as much as it is?
We haven't even gotten there yet. We're gonna
Well,
talk
that's my
about it.
point, we're talking about, I don't want to give, I'm not sure that it's in the appropriate order.
Are you
Because,
jumping a library right now?
no,
Let's just talk about these, let's skip
all right,
this.
but my point, Ian, folks, is, I'm not, never mind, yes.
It's all connected,
I'm
but.
not jumping, I'm
but
not
if-
jumping.
But let's let Casey finish this so we
I
can
can't
see.
think about that many things at once, Danny.
We'll get there.
Okay, I'm
I agree.
bumping everything out 2 years on the.
The other thing you mentioned at the last
But
meeting,
this is
Danny,
making,
was moving the lawnmower to a different line. Did you want to keep it in this?
Just trucks.
You want this to just be
It's
trucks? No, you mentioned it last meeting.
yeah,
So,
Or take lawnmower right out of it.
yeah.
Right.
Because
Yeah,
we can
right.
buy a lawnmower.
Right,
we buy push more if we got it.
yeah. Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Some of these things are great. I think my
But
point was,
Lawnmowers aren't cheap,
no, my point, no, and that's why we added it.
right?
So that's kind of my thinking. Right now, we're cutting things out of our budget that we need. And I'm
Well,
just
this,
gonna be quiet
we're
right
not
now.
necessarily cutting these, we're just trying to find a more accurate.
Right, but if we're saying we're gonna take something out, we're cutting it. Where I'm saying if we've got a department that continues to just grow well beyond what it should be,
I mean,
That's
we're
where
gonna-
we should be
We're
going.
gonna always have that. I think that's inevitable. I think growth is,
it can't be inevitable when you have,
but I think we're gonna.
you've been
continue-
told not to keep growing and then you continue to grow.
But I think that
I guess it can be
growth is, like, in a community, that's
beautiful.
where we're at.
It's good, because you're gonna need all those people with shovels in their hands, because we ain't gonna have a truck to plow the road.
Well, but this is also modern economics, it's just that everything is getting more expensive and everything goes up all the time. And so growth is inevitable in that regard, whether or not,
All right. I think I know where I'm at with this one.
well,
No, but what you're talking about is different, I think is different than what we're doing tonight, which is, I think what you're talking about is actually, it's connected to this, but we can't even talk about what you're thinking about because we don't have that information. We don't know if dump truck number 4 is in better shape than dump truck number 1.
Right.
We don't know like the state of the vehicles to be able to have that influence this. If we did, then we could do that. But so all we have is years
Right.
and like guesses at how much they're gonna cost in 20 years. But it would be great if we did have that information, because then we could reorganize this and say, oh wow, actually next year, we're really gonna have to replace 2 of these,
Right, in 1 year.
right? But we don't.
You don't got it. All right, I'll be quiet.
I just had to stop my share for a minute because I can't like drag and do all the formulas and stuff when it's in share mode, so I need to do that real quick here before I'll put it back up after.
So, I mean, these are all just guesses. I mean, we know very well that a dump truck in 2044 is not gonna cost $200,000, to Tim's point. Like, that's wishful thinking, right? It's gonna be way more than that.
It's gonna cost a Bitcoin.
Got any Bitcoin?
No, I
That's what we
don't.
should have invested in.
So that's that. Anyway,
But so just so I understand the difference between option one and option two, option one is borrowing, and then
Correct.
option two is buying out.
Correct.
So that's also what we have to decide is which is not, like, which one might be.
Okay, so.
I thought we were not wanting to borrow.
I don't want to borrow.
Yeah.
Okay, so. All right, let me get back to sharing here, hold on.
I might make a suggestion too. No,
So I moved all of the the 4 big trucks out by 2 years to 10 years. And then, I basically did a $15,000 increase from fiscal year 25 that we're in now. We're just setting aside 175 to 190 and then going up 15,000 for several years. It looks like we potentially could have a little bit of a negative, but that's not a concern because it's so many years out. And then if we could, then we could keep the 250 steady after that in this scenario. So if we do that, that means this year's set aside is now 190, which let's see what that does. That's, oh, I already have it in there. So that's a difference of, I think, 70,000. So that makes it, we go from, what were we, 11.89 to 10.4. So cut about almost 1.5% there in that scenario.
10.4 looks better.
No, it's nowhere
A
near.
single digit looks
No.
better.
No,
Yeah.
it's
We're gonna get
nowhere,
below 10.
it's nowhere near enough.
So that was 1.5% in that exercise by going out an additional 2 years on all the trucks.
So the repeater,
Mm-hmm.
got a good feeling about this grant, this Homeland Security grant. I don't think that 100,000 in the repeater or the repeater, I don't know.
When will we know about that grant?
I know, that's what
Oh, you know what? It's
Soon.
just-
And
soon, before.
I wish we could make the budget on 5s, but I don't think we can.
No, I know, but maybe we drop it down to 50,000.
Just 1 second, because I
You
think,
know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Don't take it out, just drop it down.
Eric, can you still hear us okay?
Yeah.
Okay, because I just got a warning on my screen that said Zoom had a unexplained failure or something. Did I want to report it? So I'm like, okay, all right, as long as we're still good, okay.
I have those every day.
So that took it down 1.5%.
Did you get a notification?
So can we go back to that capital budget again? And I hear a conversation in the corner about the radio repeater. If we didn't, I'm just wondering if we should budget for this. We've just put in a grant application for it, right?
Second time, I think we've done some prior legwork, and I would.
If we don't get the grant, do we have money in our fund balance?
Not really anymore. I mean, yes, we still have money in our fund balance, but we used about 315,000 of our fund balance in fiscal year 24 on flood expenses. Granted, since then, we have gotten a good portion of that back, but factoring that in, we're below our goal, given that our budget is now 4.3 or 4 million. So we're below our goal of 15%.
We're at about 10, right?
Yeah, we're gonna be around probably like 10%.
Excuse me.
So I mean, yes, we do still have some fund balance, but yeah.
But worst case scenario, we could fund that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you could.
So what, do we know when we're hearing back from that grant?
I don't.
February or
Deadline's
March,
tomorrow,
I thought.
so yeah, it'd be a spring.
So
maybe
not
early-
before
late
we-
winter, early
yeah.
spring.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, yeah, if we take that out, then we do.
Less.
We do a little bit less then, that would be 15,000 less, which we're almost, yeah, we're from 11.89 to 10.02. So getting close to 2%.
You donate your $1,000 back, it'll get us under.
I will if you will.
I ain't gonna. No way.
Kayla, you had asked for the equity committee to be what again? I missed
Yeah,
that.
so the reason, it sounded like the reason why it was made $500 is because we got a grant from the Vermont Community Foundation last year. That grant is specifically for, an equity project that we're working at, that we're starting this January. And so we were hoping that the funds would be $1,500 to cover the town training that we have been providing annually or wanting to provide annually, our community events, and then we also have funded a book club in the past too.
So what is that training? What is the benefit of that training?
Which training?
The equity training for the town employees?
So we had part of the reason why our actual was so low last year was because we had planned for a training which is a part of the June, so we now provide Juneteenth off for some of our unionized staff. And so the equity training was a part of getting that day off, was to have a training or a conversation about equity and what Juneteenth means. So that didn't end up happening last fiscal year, which is why our actuals were lower.
And so it has to be every year?
It's a part of what we talked about for that getting that day off, is to have an annual training.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're back at 10.05. So in this scenario, we have 2 new positions we're proposing. We have a new police officer, additional police officer, and this, we'll call it Director of Public Works. So
I did have one
As
question.
well as a substantial IT contract.
managed IT, yeah.
And I know Mike isn't here, so maybe we can't.
Substantial IT contract.
Like
The
20,000.
managed services.
No, but I think that's a brilliant idea.
I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
necessarily have a problem with it, I'm just saying that's another,
Yeah, it was, yeah.
It's a big one.
And our health insurance increases are just,
Yeah,
through
it's
the
crazy.
roof. I mean, we did have to switch because our current provider was going up 26% in premiums, but we switched and it's still going up maybe 15%.
It's crazy.
So we just can't get away from that. It's just, yeah.
I think if we want to, when I think about this budget, I think if we want to fund the 2 new positions, the additional police officer and the Director of Public Works, then we're going to be looking at a big increase in our budget, and we can try to whittle it down, but it's still going to be there.
How much do we need to cut to get it below that 10%?
I like remove.
Yeah.
Okay. Remove.
So we still haven't talked about the library budget yet. That was on, Dan, sounded like Danny had some questions about that. But while we're on police department, I just had a quick question about the proposed, so we had the part-time, about the overtime. So we're adding a new position. Does that not make it so we should have less? It seems like we're adding to overtime and we're adding a position. So I just wasn't sure about how that worked.
Well, so the part-time we've reduced, but the
Yeah.
part-time has managed to keep the overtime at bay. And so the overtime is almost level. It's only $3,800 difference. And that's just because you have to factor in your part-time is going to go down, you have additional officer, and then but you have salary increases. So that's, I mean, there's only a $3,800 difference in overtime from like the current budget to what's projected. And that's really just your increases, salary increases.
And overtime is also like if somebody gets called into an emergency
Correct.
outside of their hours, that's
Yes.
overtime, no matter what their position is,
Yeah.
right? Okay, I just wanted to understand.
Yeah. So it's pretty much level, the overtime is, yes.
Okay.
But as you can see, the part-time is anticipated to decrease. And maybe it would even decrease more than that. That's a possibility, that we could do like 40,000 there instead, knowing that if we had another part-time, or full-time, excuse me, whoops.
Well, the challenge is that that's assuming we'd be able to hire somebody
Yeah,
July 1st of next year, which
right,
is
and of course, then we just underspend and
And that we
overspend.
retain who we have.
right,
Yeah.
right, which we know is,
So-
yeah, yeah.
That gets it under 10, if you just did that 5,000 in overtime, in part-time, assuming that you had another full-time. So then we're at 9.91, that's, like I said, just, it's a possibility. If we did, what else? We're not changing the capital general fund, so I don't feel like there's a lot of discussion there. That's gonna stay exactly the same. Roads, you wanna talk about library, Danny? That was.
I don't think anybody else wants to, so I'm not sure there's
Well,
Well,
any.
so
we're
as
talking
I
about all of it,
explained-
we gotta do it.
The last draft was a 17% increase. I met with them to talk about some suggestions for how that could be lowered. We did manage to get it down by 5%, which was, I think, about $8,000. The way we did that is we did a little bit of negotiating on the salary that we discussed. We didn't do as much of an increase, not by a lot, but we did a little bit less than they wanted to do. We moved some categories around a little bit in their books, but the biggest change really was the fund balance contribution, because at the end of fiscal year '24, they had $4,800 left. And because in the current fiscal year, the new building isn't going to be open until almost the end of the year, there are going to be building savings. So we would anticipate that they would add to their fund balance again in the current year, which is why we did a $3,000 sort of fund balance contribution. And so between those little things, we managed to whittle it down by 5%, which I think was pretty substantial, really. Cut 5%.
I didn't
of
understand
it.
any of that in real money terms,
Okay,
so.
what is it?
So the fund balance contribution is from where to where?
So at the end of fiscal year '24, they
Yep.
had $4,800 left.
Who's they?
The library. The libraries, they have their own fund balance. That's what I was saying earlier.
So where are all where is the grants for that building and the expenses for that building
So
addition?
right here in this building budget right here, this 24,000,
Yep.
right here, that's the building.
I'm talking about
portion.
the $3 million addition, not the $24,000 addition.
Right, but that's not part of the library's operating budget. The building fund is a separate fund, like for all the donations and the grants and everything. It's a completely different fund. It's the Judavine Building Fund, a different fund.
So we got another
If you need to
different
see a
fund.
report of it, I can gladly print that off for you, but
Well,
it
I mean,
doesn't show
I
up in
don't
their
understand
general
why,
operating.
I mean, this is a big increase in the budget for a year, and no one seems to have a problem with it. And I can tell you right now, all of these issues that I'm talking about were identified prior to at least 2 bond votes that were voted down, because people weren't happy. And now it's like, well, here's the budget, and this is what we need, and that's the way it goes. And it can't go up $50,000 every year. And you can't be, well, they're not gonna use it, so we're gonna add 3,000 back in. That's freaking bullshit right there. I'm telling you, they got 3 or 4 accounts, funds.
What's a typical percentage growth in a year?
For what?
Well, a lot of this, I mean, people
The general
aren't,
budget, I mean.
but a lot of people didn't want this to start with, is what my point is, and identified that these increases would be coming once they got this addition that a lot of people didn't feel we needed.
Sure.
And all of a sudden, wham, bam, now we got a bond payment. What's that, 37.5? And now we've got increase, is across the board and everything that we were told wouldn't be increased. Staffing, janitorial expense, all these things that we said, you're building an addition, these things are gonna go up. Oh, no, 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 no. And then when I ask questions about, I mean, there's millions of dollars involved in that building over there that we don't see. So don't say, Danny, you're the select board,
No, we
you're in
can-
charge of this, this is your building, this is a town building. When there's millions of dollars that are,
We-
I have never
We can
seen.
provide
We
a
can-
report on the Judavine Building Fund.
Yeah.
It's just a separate fund because it's for a specific project. It was set up as a different fund. It was here long, even before I stared, there was a building fund.
Oh,
It was separate.
I'm not blaming you at all.
Yeah, and
Uh,
so
I'm
if
just
you want to
saying
see
that-
the activity,
produce
the
those,
in and
all of
out,
that.
we can certainly show you. It's not a secret. It's just not part of their general operating budget. This is the general operating budget. So if you want to see a report.
So there's
of that,
nothing
it's
that gets
fine.
paid, this is everything that gets paid for the library.
Day to day.
The
Day-to-day.
operating budget, yes, day-to-day operating budget, yes.
I think that's my question then, is that what determines that the general day-to-day budget comes out of our pool of money versus
The
their
Friends
pool
pool of money, right. What does their pool of money do? Millions of dollars that they've got
That's a
donated.
question you'd have to ask the
Well, all of
trustees.
the money in the building, I mean,
Yeah,
every
that's all for the
penny
building.
of
And the
that
building
went
went in the
into
building.
construction.
Right, I'm not-
Exactly, there's
so-
not gonna be a dime.
To be
left.
clear to you, I'm not accusing anybody of
Yeah.
anything, I know it's that, but I'm just saying that this is too expensive for me. Given the bond payment and increase and the way they're playing pool is kind of, you know, I appreciate you working on this, but basically what you're telling me is we made this number better this year by saying that we're not gonna, have a full year. So arguments like that are no good for me, because that $3,000 isn't real, it's just $3,000 that,
It's
that we're-
savings that they have.
Yeah, but
They're
this
saying
should-
they're gonna carry it
right.
over and use it towards this year and ask for less from the town, because they're gonna take the money that they received in a prior year and use it towards this year.
But to Danny's point, I think, is that next year we're gonna be having the same conversation when it's twice the.
right.
Twice the.
Because next year it's gonna be open,
Right.
and they're gonna need more and more and more because it's busier and growing and.
Well, we're just thinking about, well, the way we say next year is, so this budget is going to hit them when that building's open. For that entire first year that the building's open.
Correct.
They're not talking about adding staffing for the current small building. And they're not even talking about adding new staffing. It's just appropriately compensating staff that they already have. So it's not, I
In
don't.
a few hours to.
I don't see, we've seen in multiple other budgets, full FTEs being added. And there's not that being, I'm just saying, there's not that being added here. So I think, just to put that out there. So, that, to me, that 16% staffing increase is the least amount of staffing increase we've seen in this entire budget for any department. Yes, it's still expensive, but that's not a huge increase.
That's also not apples to apples.
That's
It's very
also-
different adding up.
No, I understand, but I'm just saying, just in terms of.
The
that's the-
necessity of the library is an issue that's not well argued, so I guess I'm just gonna have to go with what I gotta go with, I guess, and be happy with it.
Well, no, I just think the challenge with all these budgets, with all of the budgets, is what, the most expensive thing is the staff and the insurance. And so that's the question for the select board, like what you were just asking Jason, and that's the hardest question to ask. It's not about, okay, do we need more trash cans, do we need more physical things? It's about people. And so that's why this is a really tough conversation, because they're not
Well,
asking for money.
But it's not as tough for some people as it is
Yeah,
for
but
others,
they're not
because
asking for money
the
to,
position that Opie needs and the position that the library needs are not equal to
Sure.
me. They're not
Also-
equal.
Also, the accountability aspect of it, it's like we're funding them to do their own thing over here, whereas these other things that we're funding, they report directly to
Us.
the hierarchical structure of the town.
yeah, but we're also forgetting that the staff of the library also answer all the emergency phone calls. and help the neighbor-to-neighbor group.
You're a
No,
great advocate
I'm just,
for the library.
I'm just saying that it's that a $14,000 increase to a staffing budget is not a full-time person. It's not a huge, I don't think that's a huge increase personally.
The library's total budget is 4% of the town's entire budget.
Currently in this,
So what should it be?
scenario.
I'm not sure.
Are you
I'm just
comfortable
letting
if
you
it's
know that
50%?
I'm just letting you know that it's,
State fact.
it's 4%
Not a
of the
bit.
town's
I know
entire
that, but it's the
budget.
library. It's not the fire department. It's not the
So-
town garage. It's not your office. It's the library. And
Yeah, it is.
that is lost in this conversation. The library in this conversation is of equal value to everything else in the town, and I don't feel that way, so let's move on.
Well, I think one thing that you said to see, and we talked about this last meeting too, is seeing what the building budget is, what the money coming in and out of that is, and it sounds like it's relatively easy to get. So why don't we just ask that for the next meeting? We asked it last time too, of the library, to see what their other revenue was. And then right now, their revenue for the Friends of Judavine Donations is flatlined, mainly because you never really know exactly what you're gonna be getting. But it sounded like a part of what you were also asking is, where's the other revenue? So, why don't we ask
So
that?
the thing is, I also want to point out is there are still a lot of supporters of the library. Like, they haven't done a capital campaign, but like, it's year end, and I think I just took in another $3,000 in donations. People are consistently giving to the library because they believe in it and they support it. So I
And so-
think that's, there's something to be said about that. That
I'm
they
not,
wanna-
I'm not against that,
Yeah,
but I can't afford only so much of it.
yeah.
You get it.
So,
And everybody's
like to
entitled
think
to
you
their
did, but-
opinion. You don't, obviously don't feel the same way as other people do, and the whole bond vote thing, some people, it did pass. There are people who voted no, there were, in the last case, there were more people that voted yes, that came out to vote, and they showed their support for the library. And so that, we can't get around that. The voters spoke and they accepted the payment, and
It's here.
it's here. Like, we're making it, and yeah, so that's all. And
Did you hear that? Get out and vote, people.
I think, yeah, I mean,
It's like,
if you don't personally utilize the library, then it's probably not important to you, and that's your,
Well, it's the
that's
same
absolutely your
discussion
choice.
of
Yeah.
the rec
Yeah,
thing. It's like,
yeah.
we still want to maintain our assets, and we still want we want a functioning library that serves the needs of the community, that operates in that way, but we also have to compromise and find,
Yeah. I mean,
I don't see a lot of compromise over there.
I mean, like you said, my grievance and the accountability of it, but it's.
I'm not taking.
Is that the vinyl siding, is that the
I'm not
compromise?
taking a position here in any way, shape, or
Shingle
form.
roof.
I'm just throwing this out there. I would, if I were somebody sitting at town meeting,
Mhm.
I would want to see the contributions made to the library outside of the town
Yep.
tax revenue.
Agreed.
And I think that is an important metric as to how the library is perceived.
It is, absolutely is, and we know that,
Yeah, and.
more than most
And
people.
I don't know that.
I mean,
Like,
I recognize that they didn't get what they've got without a huge support. I'm not
Right.
saying there's not huge
Yeah,
support.
there's probably $1.5 million, $1.8
So let's make that 2 million,
donations.
so I can afford to pay my taxes.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. If you got $1.5 million,
No, I'm
Get
saying
2 million.
I'm saying they
Right.
would have received that in donations to to do the
that's fine,
expansion.
I'll send them $5 donation. But this is about our tax dollars.
Right.
What I have to pay is what this is about. It's not about what I want to do.
Right.
It's not about any of that.
Yep.
And I mean, again, I just come back to, it's like, I'm okay with it if there's like, I don't understand, and I'm trying to in that sense, but it's just like, they seem to kind of do their own thing and have their own board of trustees, and that's under their jurisdiction or whatever, and their other fund, and then they come and ask us for money, and it's our asset, so we give it to them, and it's like, where is that?
Yeah, I think,
Where's that
to Opie's point's a
where's
good
that?
point. I think part of the storytelling on their end would be a little better.
I can't speak to that, I don't know, but it's maybe
Well, I
we should have
think,
a conversation.
I'd be the first to admit, I may understand it a lot better if I saw all that, but
Right.
I guess I'm disappointed that that's not presented in a way that everyone understands that, right?
Well,
Because they know.
in the section that I'm
Oh,
gonna do in
yeah.
the town report about grants, revenue received, I'll include the library general operating budget, and I'll include the library building fund in there, grants that were received during the year, so that'll be laid out. And then if you'd like me to do a rundown, for like the last fiscal year and year to date of the building fund, the in and outs, I'm happy to do that at the next meeting, if you would like to see that.
I'd like to see that.
Okay, sure.
I think it could be beneficial.
Sure.
Yep, absolutely. It's not a secret,
All
so
right.
I'm happy to
I
share it.
just, the
You
final
guys let me
thing
talk
I'll say
about the
on that,
library.
I just don't like that it's one, like, we give them money and if
Be
they don't
hit,
spend it, they
there'll be a
keep
hit
it.
out on me.
Like that, I mean, even though it's a
I
minuscule
don't know,
amount
they
of it,
recorded
it's
that you
just
give them
like-
$5, so watch out. You might get a letter.
Diane invited me to come over there. I gotta get that.
Are we changing other things in this budget right now, or are we gonna let it ride till next time?
Let's cut it. Cut.
Let it ride.
Yep.
Okay, so this, we're at 9.91.
I'd like to get the
No.
9.9, I'd like to get the 1 to a 9.
Yeah,
Or
9.
settle down.
Everyone goes for the 99 cents. It's
Right.
like you.
Oh, the 9.99.
Now it's a
A
disconnect.
little bit of levity for turn of 8.
Well, thank you, Casey. Thank you, Opie. This is not easy. And
Thank you, we did about nothing.
sure we did.
What?
We always amount to
We
something,
move
Dave.
numbers every time.
Translation,
Look at
thanks
that.
for nothing.
That started at 13%.
Yep, you're right.
So we
That's a pretty
had,
big
so we,
difference.
in this scenario, so we looked at.
Right, but we
using the-
made some changes I'm not sure we 100% support.
Well,
Did we all
We have
agree?
10 years on the
You gotta
trade-in.
feel
Right, did we all agree at 10 years on the trade-in? Because I didn't
I mean,
think we voted
personally, I
on
think it's
that.
risky because at this point, we're already putting money into trucks that are 3 years old, like $5,000 repairs, $7,000 repairs.
So we're gonna have to do
Like-
something. I'm not sure.
I think.
It would be great to have
10
a little
might be
bit more
stretched.
insight into what we have in inventory for
Working on it.
equipment,
I'm working on it.
for what we really do have, and
Yep.
what do we have anticipate for, you know, what do we have problems with? Do we have something on the horizon that we may have to deal with? And we're always gonna have to be diligent in looking for that stuff ahead
yeah.
of the game.
The conversation has been had.
You know what I'm saying? Because that's the only way we're ever gonna be able to stretch it to 10 years, which I think we're gonna have to do.
Absolutely.
And then we have things like that toolcat that we can do anything we want, and that thing's still gonna be wore out. You know what I'm saying? Because it's installed every time it goes out in the winter, and it's just,
the only other little thing that Casey, did we change Opie, you said that we changed the West Woodbury revenue to 8,400 in your report?
Oh, I didn't make an adjustment here.
It's
on that,
6 there,
so-
yeah.
So I'll just do 8,000, increase
Okay.
it another 2, because we don't know exactly, that was just for this year, so.
Okay.
So yeah, it makes a slight difference.
I mean, it's tiny, but.
So one thing I will note is that in this scenario, we haven't actually seen this in a long time, but where our revenues were actually increasing more than our budget. It's been a few years since we've seen that, so that is positive because that also means that it's less we have to raise in property taxes, so that's a positive, I will say.
and so none of this,
Is that since 2021?
Say what?
Yeah.
Is there any other discussion about the budget? All right, select board reports. Sherry's not here, so.
shorten that out.
New business or old business? We do we want to stay here for the,
Oh,
Ex-
yeah.
do you want to call Eric downstairs? Do we want to, for the
Yeah, we'll
executive
just do
session?
that, yeah, just call it. It should be like 2 minutes,
Okay.
like, or 5, like, just a couple minutes so we can, because we've been
Are we
given a few
We're doing a
ideas
really-
for,
Executive
just for, to have the surprise town dedication, whatever, so we
Oh,
can
yeah.
just figure out who that's gonna be, so.
Can we do it here? right?
Yeah, I guess we could, yeah,
These guys
yeah,
out.
that's fine, that's fine, yeah.
Okay,
See ya.
we'll call you Eric. All right, meeting
Well,
adjourned.
left, So, okay. All right.
Dude, Eric is a
Oh,
nice
wait, so
pen.
nobody motioned to go into executive session
Oh,
Took on, yeah, me, Danny.
to include,
To include-
Opie and Jason.
all those in favor? Aye.
Executive session. Yes, together.
All right, we're going into executive session.